Hello and welcome to the Exchequer Introduction to Visual Report Writer video. The Exchequer Visual Report Writer is a tool which allows you to create and design your own reports using a simple and intuitive wizard. I find a lot of people are scared at the prospect of creating their own reports, but with the Visual Report Writer you can't really go wrong. There's a lot of standard reports available to you that you can edit or work from as templates. And if you add a new report and it's not quite what you need, you can always delete it and start again. The wizard makes it really easy, which guides you through all of the core report attributes that you're going to need to incorporate. So we've launched the Visual Report Writer by going to the Reports menu on Exchequer, and we selected Visual Report Writer. And it actually opens the Report Writer in a completely separate screen to Exchequer, so you can minimise it and carry on working in Exchequer if you need to. So the first thing that you're presented with is the report tree. And within here you can add new groups or new reports. And you can also go to File and Import Reports. So you may want to import reports from another company that you have set up, or reports that HBP may have created for you. Within here you can also edit existing reports or copy existing reports if you're wanting to use them as a base for your new report. So what we're going to do is add a new report to start off with. So these yellow folders are report groups, so you can create as many as you like and call them whatever you like. So over on the right hand side, if you wanted to create a new report group, you would make sure that you highlighted in the folder that you want it to go within and select add report. You'd give it a name and a description and you'd just select report group. What we're actually going to do is create a brand new report from scratch so that we can see the report wizard and work through that. So I might want to see a report which is a customer list with telephone numbers. So I'm going to highlight customer lists because I want my report to show within there, and I'm going to select add report over on the right hand side. So I'll give it a code and a description, so customer phone list. So we're just going to ensure that report is selected, and this part here is the wizard. And what I would say with the report wizard is get as much information into the report as possible through the wizard. Once it's created the report through the wizard, you'll see the report template on screen. You can't actually get back to that wizard. You can still edit the report and do everything you need to on the layout design, but this report wizard is only for initial report creation. So the first thing it wants us to do is select the data file that we want the report to run on. So there are many report data files available to us. If we just want to look at information that shows against the customer, so any of this static information that you see on your customer record, or any of the customer balances, you would use the customer database. If you wanted to start looking at transactions and report on transactions themselves, then you would use either the transaction header or the transaction line database. Header being this information here, and this kind of information here. So if you literally wanted to see a list of sales invoices within a certain period, and all you were interested in was the account number, the period, maybe the date, and the transaction total amount, then you would only need to use header information. If you want to start reporting on this information in here, then you would look at the line database. And the line database is the very bottom level database. So if you access the line database, you can see the header information as well. So that's what this main file is talking about. If we just want a list of customers with some phone numbers on there, address details, email addresses, that kind of thing, we only need to look at the customer database. And everything in here is accessible. And depending upon what you select here, really depends upon what other databases you can get to. So when we were talking about the document details, if I select that here and just go next through as if we're going to add a database field in, you'll see here that because we've selected the transaction line database, we can also get to the header, but then we can also get to your customer information and your stock information. If we go back and just select customer for the purpose of this exercise, when we go to add a database field, you'll see that the only information we can actually get to are your customer and supplier fields, the notes, and any system setup fields. So all of the available fields to you are here in the list, and you can flick through and select them. You can start typing to take you to the field that you need to select. If you want to select multiple fields, you can highlight, click the control button on your keyboard and just highlight several fields. But what we're actually going to do is just build this up one by one. So the first thing I'm going to select is the account code, and most of these field names are pretty self-explanatory as to what they are, but if you're unsure, you do have this full list to look through. That's just the account code, so I also want the account name, which is AC Comp for company name. And then I'm just going to build everything up. So I might want to see the delivery addresses. So here I'm just going to select the control key and just select those fields that I need. And don't worry if you select more fields than you do need, because you can delete them at a later date when you get as far as the report design template. I then might want to look at the account postcode, telephone number, and possibly the area code that we have set against that account. So within these as well, you can move the fields up, move them down if you want to show them in a different order, delete fields, and look at the properties and give it a different column title if you want to. But everything that you're doing within here, you can change when we get to the template. So if I go next, it's now asking me how I want to sort my report. So if you can imagine, this is going to be a list of all of my accounts with the address information and the telephone number and the area code. So I would probably want to see it in account code order. So we'll just move that over there, and we can change the sort order here, ascending or descending, and whether or not we want a page break on every change of account code. If I go next, it's now asking me about selection criteria. So this is where you can add an optional filter to the report. So for example, I might only want to see customers that have a postcode in the HU area, for example. So that's the kind of thing that we can do here. What I'm actually going to do is say I only want to see customers that are in area number 1. So if we just do change filter, the first thing that you need to do is select the database field that you want to filter. And then you can manually type in or go to the operators tab. So I want to say my AC area is equal to 1, because I know I've got some customers in area 1. But as you can see with these formulas, and we'll look at this a little bit later in the video, but you can do all sorts of things by add, subtract, divide, times different fields together, and there are other things that you can do in here. So you've got all of these strings. So I could have said I only wanted the postcode that begins with HU, that kind of thing, and there's all sorts of rounding things that we can do on here, and all sorts of other functions that are available to you, totaling fields, counting the number of fields. Quite a common one is date to number, things like that, but that kind of gets a little bit more complex with more interactive and more in-depth report writer courses. So at the moment I've got my filter for the area equal to 1, and going next is just showing me how the report is going to be laid out, and to be honest it'll make much more sense when we see it on screen. So if I select finish here, what we can see that this is done, your report designer is split up into several sections. So your report header is really anything that you only want to see on the very first page of that report. Your page header will show on every single page. So as default, within every report that's created within the Exchequer Report Designer, it will print you the company name and the report name and the date and the page number. And you can just click and delete those fields if you want to. Just click on them, select delete on your keyboard, or click on them, an arrow key, or click and drag them around. It's a pretty interactive desktop, so you can do that pretty much with every field that you see on here. What it's also done for all of these fields that we've selected, it's put a column title here for them, and this is probably something that we're going to need to sort of work around with on this screen and change the sizes and move it around a little bit. You'll have a section header for every sort that we selected. So because we wanted to sort it ascending by account number, you have a section number. Your report line is your main body of the report. And then you've got footers, which is generally where you would total reports. So if you were looking at a transactional report, and we'll look at one in a moment. And then anything that you want to see on the footer of every page, and everything that you want to see on the footer of the report as a whole. So what I would always advise with the report designer is save it as you go along, because if you do a lot of work on the report and realise when you preview it it's not giving you the results that you need, you're not really sure what action has caused that to happen. So I would always say, especially when you're starting out with the report writer, make sure you save it as you go along and make sure you preview the report. So this icon here at the top allows you to run the report. So if I just press that here and we'll have a look and print it to screen and look at what we've got at the moment. So as you can see, the information is a bit all over the place. So we're going to go back and tidy that up. So if I just select this green cross here just to close down the preview. And each of these sections, incidentally, we can click and drag on and make them bigger. So I like to make my work area a bit larger while I'm working around with it, and then I'll close it back up. So I'm just going to click and drag this area code out of the way for the moment in time. And what I'm actually going to do is just click and drag on these fields and get my address fields into a better order. So and then I might want to see the telephone number next to the company name and the area. So already that is looking a little bit better. One tip here with the report designer, it can be quite fiddly to align your fields. So if you've got several fields that you want to align, you can just drag and draw a box around them. And then if you right click and select align, you can say align the left sides, right sides, space them equally, or center them. So if I just do left sides, that's going to align everything together there for us. And I'm just going to click and drag these and use my arrow keys on my keyboard just to close everything up there. And I'm just going to draw a box around the whole lot and arrow key that up. Now I've finished with this work area, I'm just going to drag this section footer up, because if I don't, I'll have a huge gap between each account code on my report. So I'm going to save it at this point and just print it to screen again. And already you can see that that's looking a little bit better, apart from this header information, which again we can tidy that up as well. So this account, for example, we can see that we've got the account code and the account name and the postcode, but clearly that account has got no address in there, so we know that we need to go in and fill that address in. What you may want to do is hide this section here. So the reason this section is here is because we're sorting the account based upon the account code, but we might not want to see the account code, or we may want to see it here but not here. So you could just either copy and paste that account code into this section here, and I'm just going to squeeze these fields up a little bit, and I'm just going to pop that there. Incidentally, I'm just going to copy and paste because that actually does need to exist in that section for your sorting. So you'll see, because I've moved that, it's actually taken the sorting off. But if I want to add it back on, I can just right click and go to sorting and just set it within there. Also, if you haven't defined a section header as part of the wizard and you want to add a section header in either for display purposes or for sorting, you can just do that by going into the tools that you have on here. So you've got lots of different options here. It would be report and add new section header footer, and that will put that section into there for you. So I'm not too bothered about a lot of this header information, so I can just click and delete some of the fields that I've got on there, or click my control lines, my control key, and just highlight them and remove them. So all I might want to see is a title that says area, telephone number, and account. If you want to insert a text box, just use this button here. If you hover over it, it will tell you exactly what it does. Click into the section that you want it to show and type your text into there. Obviously you can justify it differently, and you can come in here and change all of the font. If I select OK, I'm just going to click an arrow and drag that into place. So that's showing me my account information. There's a huge gap here that I might not need on my report, so I'm just going to draw a box around all of this, arrow key to move it up, and close this section up a bit. So again, we're starting to get the report a little bit tidier. I'm just going to save that and print it again to screen. And again, I can see that that information is showing. So it is a concern that some of this information is missing some details. When you preview a report, if you highlight, if you hover over the particular information, you can click and it'll allow you to drill down and see that information in Exchequer. And I can see that there is actually information here that's showing. So I'm wondering why that information hasn't pulled through on my report. If I close this and go back and have a look at what my report is doing, I can see that actually I've pulled through AC Del 2, 3, 4 and 5. That's actually my delivery lines. So if I realise that I've pulled through the wrong database field and I need to amend it, you can either click on it and delete it and use this button here to add a new database field, or I could just double click on it and it'll take me into exactly the same screen to change that database field. If you know what the code is that you need to pull through, you can just start typing it in there and you can select, and that pulls through the information. If you are not sure and you're just starting out with a visual report writer, you can just click select and that will take you into all of the information that's available. So I can see here now there's address line 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So I think that I need to use my address line rather than my delivery address line. So I'm just going to go and change that. And what I can do is I'm pretty confident with what the address line 2 is going to be. Because this is AC add 1, I'm assuming this is AC add 2. And I can just type that into there and it validates that here. So I'm just going to change that for each of these lines. And that's changed that directly on the report. So I'm going to save that and print it again to screen. And I can see I'm now getting that address information there. I'm still getting my account code showing twice though, and I don't necessarily need that. So what I'm going to do on this section, I still want my sorting to be there, but I'm not interested in seeing that section. I'm going to right click and do hide region. If at any point you need to get back to that region to put any sorting or any header fields in there, what you can do is go to the report and on the controls tree, this will show you all of the different sections, and my section header here is grayed out because I've hidden it. You can just do show and there it is, it's back again, or I can hide it. So if I save my report and run it again, it's making a little bit more sense. I've got my header information here, I've got my title line, and I've got my account information showing and my area code. And incidentally, you'll be able to see on the report that I can only see area code 1, and that's because of that selection criteria I added on this field at the time of running the report. If I want to get back to that, I right click on the field itself and go back to the selection criteria, and I might want to say, well, actually I want to see all areas, so I could just completely take that information out of there, save that field, save my report and print it to screen again, and now you can see I've got other accounts coming through that belong to different area codes. What I also may want to do is have a selection criteria on this report. So every time I run the report, I may want to choose the account code that I'm running it for. If you right click on that account code field and go to range filter and type account code, select the type from the list, which is going to be customer code. And if I tick this box here to say always ask the user for input, when I run that report, it's going to ask me for the customer range. Here I can use my / if I'm not sure what the account code is, and it will bring up the list. So I might say I want to see all accounts from AB applications all the way through to Brown Cabling Services. If I select OK and print the report, that's all of the information that I get to see on the report. I've only got 3 pages of information there, right through to the Brown Cabling Services. So that range filter is quite useful. You can use it for things like if you want to choose, you're running a transaction report and you only want to see transactions between certain period numbers, certain dates, for certain general ledger codes. That's the kind of thing that is used for. And your selection criteria is used for actually writing out information that you don't want to see within the visual report writer. So we only wanted to see a certain area code, for example. We might only want to see postcodes that begin with HU. For a transactional report, we might only want to see transaction type for purchase invoices or sales invoices, that kind of thing. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of the report designer itself. Anything over here at the top you can hover. So this was the text box that we used to add this account header for. You have an add image, so that's adding a bitmap image onto the report. Adding a box, a database field, a formula field. So with some of your transactional reports, you can start getting quite advanced and doing formulas to work out percentages of certain fields or to times or multiply fields together. Printing your report, and then this box actually takes you back to your main report screen. So it would ask us if we wanted to save the report, and it takes us back to this main report list. At any point, if I want to get back into that report, I can just double click it to open it up. If I want to run it from this screen, I can just select print. I don't actually have to open up the report to go into it. If I wanted to copy it, I would select copy on the right hand side, and it will ask me to give it a new name and description. So the copy is quite useful if you have a report within here that you want to copy and start playing around with to make some changes. And generally everything that is accessed here you can access through these controls as well. Another thing to note in here in report and report properties, this allows you to set paper sizes and set the orientation of the report, whether it be portrait or landscape. You can choose the main file in here and change it, but what I would say is you have to be careful when choosing that main file. If you change that to a file that won't link to customers, for example, you're not going to get it printing out the information that you need. So that's the basics of creating a report. I'm just going to go back to this report tree and have a look at a transactional report, for example. So let's look at the sales daybook report here. So you can see how you can start to build some quite complex reports. And again, you've got your headers, you've got your line, and you've got your footers here. And these are purely just database fields that have been inserted into the system. So the TH hour ref is your sales invoice number, so sales invoice number 100, for example. And you have all of this information here. And these formulas, what they're doing is basically totaling these fields here. So if I just print this report to screen, there's a range filter on there asking us for a date range, so I'm just going to leave that as it is at the moment. And generate and print the report. Okay, so you can see this report is giving us a list of transactions here. It looks like it's sorted by that transaction reference field, so we'll have a sorting field on there for that. And there's some total information here. And you can see here that there's totals, so that is actually referring to these formulas here. So for every header, you've got a footer. So because it's doing a sort on transaction type, your footer is also based upon transaction type. So what this is saying, at the end of every transaction type, give me a total of these fields. So the report actually started with sales credit notes, and at the end of our sales credit notes section, it gave us a total. It then moves on to sales invoices, and when we find the end of our sales invoices, which is probably a fair few pages through this, there it was, it's given us another total. And if we go right to the very end of the report, as well as giving us a total for the bulk of the sales receipt with invoice transactions, it's also given us a report grand total, and that grand total is coming from these formulas here. So all that is a formula that's been inserted, and we've selected total field of the TH net goods. I'll just delete that for the purpose of this exercise and show you how that's generated. So you'd select this formula button here, click into the section that you want the formula to show, and what we've actually used here is an other function. So we've gone total field, and then we just go to database fields and just double click the field that we want to total. It's as simple as that. Drag it into place, and there it is. What this is doing is exactly the same thing, so you'll see it's doing a total field of your net goods. But because it is in this section within the report writer, it knows it wants to total absolutely everything on the report. This is purely doing a total based upon the transaction type here. So that has been a very basic introduction to the visual report writer. Thank you for very much for listening to my video. If there's anything you need from us, if you want to go down the route of having some more complex training on the visual report writer, or you need some support on the visual report writer, please feel free to contact us here at HBP Systems on the support desk. Thank you.